Are you ready to unlock your full potential and maximize your productivity? Look no further than Productivity Smarts, the ultimate audio podcast hosted by renowned productivity expert Gerald J. Leonard. In every episode, Gerald shares captivating stories, invaluable tips, and cutting-edge strategies that will transform the way you approach productivity. Whether you're looking to reduce stress, overcome overwhelm, or simply get more done in less time, Productivity Smarts has got you covered. But that's not all. You'll also gain inspiration from real-life success stories of individuals who have achieved greatness through productivity. Plus, you'll learn the latest tools, techniques, and habits that will help you achieve a new level of happiness and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So why wait? Join us every week as we delve into the exciting world of productivity and help you unleash your full potential. Get ready to take your productivity to the next level with Productivity Smarts. As a productivity expert and host of the Productivity Smarts podcast, Gerald J. Leonard has been a proud supporter of Kiva since 2011. Kiva is a non-profit organization that helps entrepreneurs in third world countries access the capital they need to start or grow their businesses. By making a small loan through Kiva, you can help these entrepreneurs achieve their dreams, support their families, and contribute to their local economies. And with a repayment rate of over 96%, your loan can be re-lent to another entrepreneur once it's repaid, creating a ripple effect of positive change. So if you're looking for a meaningful way to make a difference in the world, consider making a loan through Kiva. With loans as small as $25, anyone can be a micro-lender and help change lives. Visit kiva.org to learn more and start lending today.
Today, I have a special guest, Alexis Normand. He's the co-founder of Greenly, a leading carbon accounting platform helping companies measure and reduce their carbon footprint with precision and clarity. With a background in digital health and B2B innovation, Alexis is passionate about integrating sustainability into operations, making climate action a driver of both impact and productivity. Alexis, how are you?
I'm great. So good to be here with you, Gerald, today. Thanks for inviting me.
Excellent, excellent. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. And as we were talking about earlier, I always ask a couple of questions because of my musical background. And that is, one, what is your favorite style of music?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's pretty mundane. You know, I like rock and roll like many people, but I guess I was born in the 80s, so I like the 90s rock and roll, you know, the Red Hot Chili Pepper or even before that, the psychedelic rock and roll like Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
With those guitar electric solos, you know, that's...
Exactly. So you probably like Van Halen as well.
Yeah, or the blues, which I think is your style of music as well, right?
Yeah, jazz and blues, B.B. King and those kinds of things. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I'm into that vibe.
Excellent. Well, listen, how did you get started in this field of sustainability, and what do you feel like has made you so successful with really building a platform that my company's partnered with you guys on with Greenly? What do you feel like has made you so successful throughout your career?
Yeah, well, I still consider we have a lot to do, so I don't look so much behind and more like forward, but I guess relative to other players, we're now one of the biggest carbon accounting platforms in the world. So I guess, you know, what got us started, what made us successful, what got us to this point. So how we started, you said I had a background in digital health. So in fact, you know, I was very much into the quantified self movement in healthcare. I have a connected watch, you know, Wi-Fi scales, all those things. So I was leading this company's Boston office, this company called Withings, and selling into healthcare.
Yeah.
And after many years of that, I had, you know, learned that you could essentially create short-term incentives for people to change their behavior today, although the long-term benefits, you know, are years away. So be healthy, reduce your cardiovascular risk, you know. In a sense, the way we need to approach climate change is very much the same, right? All of the efforts we do today will have real long-term benefits probably for our kids or our grandkids. But if it's only that, there are little reasons, to change our behavior. So we also need to find those short-term incentives, those business incentives, and so on. So I guess I was mature, through my digital health experience on how to approach these climate change problems. But how we got started was, okay, let's do the quantified self for carbon footprinting. And so with my co-founders, we initially launched an app that would help a person track his carbon footprint by linking to his bank accounts, kind of like you have apps like Mint in the US to aggregate your bank accounts and then calculate your credit score. We did something similar from a tech perspective, but to analyze each and every one of your transactions to give an estimation of what the footprint of that purchase was. And if just having a spend-based data point was not enough, we'd dig deeper, etc. So that was the V1 of Greenly, until we realized, of course, that yes, individuals are very motivated, but we kind of need to create the need and educate people. And we're never going to have 10 million people on this app in the short term to build a business. And of course, by that time, we started to learn a lot of things about the market, about carbon accounting. And we realized what was maybe obvious to other people was that the real need, the real market was for businesses. Yeah. So when we got to the realization of that, 6-9 months into the business, we pivoted and say, okay, let's repurpose what we've built to analyze payments, not for people's individual bank accounts, but for companies' accounting data. Right. And here we can essentially solve one of the pain points of many companies, which is, this whole data collection thing is really painful. I'm not going to do my carbon accounting. It's consultancy-led only, and it takes a lot of time. It's very manual, and so on and so forth. So I still want support. I still want help. We're partners, as you said, right? But I also want the painful stuff out of the way. Right. And so we did the integration with accounting data platforms, and then we started to accelerate this movement. And then, of course, we realized just spend data was not enough, etc. But by that time, we had our first customers. We had a lot of feedback loops. We started to basically learn extremely fast. The beginning of our scaling, I think I've only answered the first part of the question, which was how did we get started? So here we are. And now what has made us successful, I think we have been fortunate, is we started with very small companies. Yep. And so we had a lot of velocity in terms of customer, use cases. Yes. And so we had a philosophy of solving a lot of small problems very quickly. Okay. And so building Greenly's platform has been a very iterative process. Right. Okay. And progressively, we covered more and more use cases, and we went from a platform that could work for a few use cases to something that we think now is pretty much all encompassing. And so now, if you compare it to some of our peers who are doing excellent work in carbon accounting, some of them said, okay, let's work with enterprises because it's only those very, very big companies that want carbon accounting. Right. But when you work with an enterprise, they always want stuff that's super custom. They actually want only consulting in many cases and so on. So the opportunity to build a platform and iterate is much smaller because you have fewer use cases, you have longer feedback loops, and so on and so forth. So we worked from the ground up, from the app to the SMB, and now, of course, to the mid-market and even the enterprise today, but coming to market with a much more robust platform. Right. And of course, as we've learned to grow in this market, we've also come across new partners, and we also understand our bigger customers now want this support, and that's where we've built also an ecosystem of partners like your own company, right, to scale this. So, long story short, iteration, short feedback loops, and customer obsession.
I think as we're talking, and I know we're talking about, sustainability and the Greenly platform and the business. And as I'm thinking and as we were talking and the way some of the things that you were saying, I'm thinking about, again, the concept of productivity smart. And really, when I listen to what you just said, and for anyone who's listening, whether you're building a one-person shop or you're, developing a course or you're, just getting started in consulting or business, there's some takeaways here. And that is one, start small and learn. Be quick to, and I'm sure in the process, there were things that didn't work out, that did work out, that you went through this learning journey and you iterated.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, I'm not the first to say this, but people think the speed and the growth of a company is linked to how many big accounts they sign, and
Right.
that's pretty true. But it's really the real speed is not how fast you code, as a developer.
Right.
It's how quickly you take decisions, how
Yes.
quickly you iterate. It's the speed of the feedback loop, and from my previous experience in healthcare, I had worked with very large companies, big pharma, and so on. And in fact, I didn't want to do this again, at least not up from the start, simply because I knew how excruciatingly slow those business developments would be.
Right.
That's the best way to kill a startup.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, let me ask you this: based on your own personal habits, what systems or habits do you personally rely on to stay productive while driving both innovation and impact at Greenly?
Hmm. Good question. I mean, I'm not naturally a very organized person, so I need to, have to frame, I guess, my week, with rituals and things
Okay.
that make sure I get stuff done. So, I mean, basic checklist stuff, etc. Right, but also
Right.
those weekly meetings, all those things. So nothing very original there, unfortunately. But I do think we're a small enough organization, about 200, 250, that I can take a deep dive in everything. So my job as a CEO is not to micromanage, but it
Right.
is to make sure there is the right amount of attention on every topic. So I guess something very stupid but very important is to have a zero mail inbox thing. So answer every single email or triage effectively. And same thing with like the internal discussion forums like Slack or whatever you
Yes.
use. So I answer everything. So there's a very systematic approach to checking all the boxes.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's perfect. I love the fact that you said, I am not an organized person. And then you go on and explain a process that kind of forces you to become organized and disciplined because you've created, I would say, guardrails or boundaries or frameworks in your week that allow you, even though by nature you feel that I'm not as organized as I would like to be or the way I want to be, but the systems and processes you've set up kind of allow you to go down that river of organization and have these check-ins and certain principles around zero inbox and checklists and working with your teams and so on. So I think that's really important for everyone to listen to.
And I would say, well, the job of the CEO changes a lot over the life of a company, especially if it's growing.
Yes.
So there is also intrinsically a certain lack of organization because I have to focus on things. I have to give more or less weight to different issues according to the phase that I think we're in. So one of the other ways to do this, I mean, again, nothing very original, but I have found that, beyond the weekly presentations with every team and so on, sometimes you say, hey, here's a big topic that we haven't thought enough of. And so writing the famous 6-page memo, that is the Amazon way. It doesn't
Right.
have to be 6 page, but you don't want to write a novel.
Right.
Actually helps like frame the discussion on important topic and then make it also for the company a document that people can align on. So, it feels that we're all over the place, but on certain topics, you want to say, here's the strategy, and
Right.
we can change it every 3 months if you want. but at least at a given point of time, there's always a reference document, and we probably got half the stuff wrong, but at least there's some direction,
Yeah. Well, it's like playing jazz, right? It's like playing music. Everyone has to have a score, and everyone has to be on the same sheet of music, right? At least playing the same framework and same notes. And then we start improvising and so on.
Jazz, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's exactly what's happening. Now, let me ask you this. Carbon data is complex, right? When you look at the process of calculating a carbon-based footprint and all of the different acronyms out there, whether it's science-based targets, SCRD, CDP, all these things that are related to carbon accounting and sustainability. How does Greenly simplify this in a way that reduces decision fatigue and accelerates strategic planning? Because I know as a partner helping clients go through this process, it's very intuitive. And it's like the platform has taken the complexity of the consulting and made it very streamlined and kind of guide you through the process. How did you guys go about creating that?
You're right to emphasize, the decision fatigue, or maybe the sense of helplessness when it comes to what do you need to focus on, right?
Right.
So because there are so many things you can do, do I need to replace my paper cups by mugs, or, is there something more important that I should be doing if I'm in the oil and gas business, to decarbonize? I'm taking two extremes, of course, but so I think what we've learned, over the years with basically thousands of customers is that people very different starting points.
Yes.
And they're in very different verticals. And carbon, the reason it seems complex is if you can have a very quick and dirty approach to like sizing the big buckets,
yes,
or you can have an extremely granular view, and the granularity helps make the right decisions to decarbonize, but you only want to do this for the important issues.
Right.
So the first step is this scoping. And I think, you have to scope along basically two dimensions.
Okay.
First dimension is how much of a beginner are you in this space? How are you a learner or are you an expert,
Right.
And so if you're a learner, you first need to get a sense of what those big categories are.
Right.
And so you can have data that's less granular. And also, you probably don't want to like launch a full deep dive into, you don't need to track the carbon footprint of every pencil and eraser that you have out there,
Right.
You need to give the right amount of energy to the big buckets. But if you're an expert, you want to go all the way down to each of my big suppliers, what are their emissions? So we frame the thing, how much time and expertise you have, so that we will suggest to you the right granularity of data.
Okay.
And that's number one. And number two is, what is your vertical? Are you a manufacturing company? Are you a tech company? Are you an agro business? Because the sources of emissions that are most important very, very much according to vertical. So if you're a tech company, most of your emissions will be basically your cloud.
Right.
If you're a manufacturing company, most of your emissions will be your purchase of goods, to make whatever it is you're building. Right. And if you're an agribusiness, it's going to be your transport or your fertilizers or whatever. So the point being, we define the right amount of data so you have precision where it matters and you can go quickly where it doesn't.
Gotcha.
So there's a scoping along those two dimensions at the very beginning. And then basically it's, we're a data processing platform.
Yeah.
So it's all about creating the user experience that essentially makes sure you always get the biggest buckets first, and we prioritize for you all the time, or we give you tools to prioritize.
Right.
So what are my biggest sources of emission? I'm a tech company. It's my cloud. Okay, what do I do about it? Should I move from a spend-based approach? I'm giving Amazon $1 million a year to an activity-based approach. Hey, and because that's your biggest area, I'll be suggesting a way to actually measure the electricity consumption of your cloud so that you can decide where to host your data, or, but basically the deep dive is always based on what's important to you as a vertical, and that's
Right.
what the system does. It prioritizes the biggest buckets.
Right.
And your question, same thing with action plans. Of course, there's a million things you could be doing.
Yeah.
You only want to be doing things based, again, on two dimensions. Impact, what are my biggest sources of emissions? And then ease of implementation. What are those projects that, maybe are not that costly or maybe actually save money? If you want to reduce your electricity consumption, you're both reducing your footprint and you're making money. So
Right.
that's the easy one, right? If you need to replace your steel supplier, that's the hard one because it might cost you more,
That's why when I first learned about the platform, I was working with one of my clients and they asked us to become, get involved with sustainability. And that's when I went on my own journey and learned and then did research and found Greenly. And when I first saw the demo of the platform and saw some of the content that, the educational content you guys put together, it just resonated because I've been doing for the last 25 years or plus project portfolio management, which is looking at, organizations, CapEx projects. And again, it's really those two things. What are the big rocks and what are the things that are going to really move the needle? And then what are the things that we could do to create quick wins so that we could get everybody engaged in the process? Because if you have quick wins and people see action and momentum, they get on board. And if you maneuver some of the big rocks, then you get the C-suite or you get the folks up top really looking and saying, hey, this is actually making a difference. And I saw that in the platform. And it's in all, when it comes to that decision fatigue and accelerating the strategic planning, that's really also a neurological concept, because if you can reduce decision fatigue, then you are actually quelling the amygdala of someone's mind, right? Their brain. You're quelling that fear factor. So now they're no longer afraid to make a step and kind of get into the weeds or the complexities of the system because you've actually made it a lot easier. And when you think about making it a lot easier these days, the big buzz right now, and it's not just buzz, it's AI, right? Artificial intelligence and automation. And, again, that was one of the things that I really looked at when I saw the platform that I fell in love with, was that there's a lot of automation and AI that's being constantly built into the tool. Now, from your perspective, what role does automation, AI play in helping businesses become more climate conscious and more efficient and effective?
Yeah, great question. I mean, there was always AI on, automatically translating your company data into emissions data. Okay, but we also got started 5 years ago, and like everybody else, we've been impacted by amazing improvements in those LLM models, and so we kind of naturally started to put them into the platform in different areas. First of all, actually on support, there's a support chat inside the platform.
Right.
And we're in a business where people have a lot of questions on not just how to use the platform, but the methodology. Why do you say that a ton of steel equals 5 tons of CO2? Where does that come from? And so on. And some of the stuff is self-explanatory in the platform, but
Right.
sometimes questions on methodology are pretty tough. And by the way, not just for our customers, also for our own staff, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've been able to do is, of course, put these AI-powered bots as support. What's really important is what data you feed them on.
Yes.
And so we have a huge backlog of methodological research questions and things that we've answered. So if you ever ask us a complex research methodology question that we've already answered in the last 5 years, basically,
Yes.
we plug this into, as a resource. We've plugged all those Slack conversations from our research and methodology team into those bots so that before we create new knowledge, we basically synthesize everything that's been said in the past.
Yeah.
So that's huge because it means like 50% of the questions that our customers ask from the support are actually answered by an AI bot. Whereas previously you had to guide the person through a decision tree towards the right article, and they'd have to like read 2 pages and maybe find, what they were looking for. So that's huge. And it's huge even to train our own guys to, just look this up with like similar tools that are more inward facing. So that's number one. Number two is what's painful in this, emissions reporting business for customers is that they need to find the data, put it into format that fits our platform, and then our platform analyzes it. And so people spend loads of time basically formatting that data.
Yeah.
Now, in the past, we gave them templates and then put it in the format, and here you go. But now, people, what they do is they usually download this from some software they have or they integrate it, but you still need to reprocess. So you also have AI tools now that automatically suggest new data labeling so that you can fit your, company-specific format from whatever software you're using into our format. And so again, where you're talking things that took a day and now take basically 30 seconds,
Right.
And then step three is we already had this automation of the matching of the line item. I bought 30 computers, I bought a ton of steel with the right emission factor.
Right.
But there's a lot of, text normalization, making sure you identify it, matching with the right emission factor. So we're also improving that with AI. And last but not least, so while you're still on the carbon footprint side of things, once you have all this quantitative data, you could basically generate a report.
Yes.
And it doesn't need a ton of AI just to like build graphs and so on and the text that comes with it. But now you're walking into a world where it's not just carbon reporting, right? It's you mentioned it. It's CDP reporting. It's SPT reporting, and then there are wider
EcoVadis reporting,
like CSRD in Europe. But if you think California, IFRS, S1, S2, these kind of things. So these have more written text approaches. It's like, okay, what's my climate risk? And then you have to report stuff under a specific framework and so on. So here you're talking AI about text synthesis and text generation. So if you've already built a strategy or if you already have an ESG report from previous year, you can feed it into the platform.
Yes.
And it will extract everything you want and then slice and dice this information into the reporting areas of those frameworks. And so you still need to read and validate this stuff and make sure it reflects what you're really thinking. But it's just such a time saver. And then it will generate the text as an output that will essentially build your reporting 10x faster,
Exactly.
We're talking the glossy paper report that you can show your investors or your customers or whoever,
Exactly. And that's such a smart way because, again, another part of what I love about the platform is that you put the data in once, right? And because of the additional AI capabilities that you guys have built in, the knowledge that you've built in, the know-how that you've built in, you're then able to extract that data in multiple formats and saves tons of time. You're able to meet tons of different regulations globally, and it's all based on certified processes, which is a really smart way of leveraging automation and AI.
Exactly. And you're talking like compliance frameworks and stuff. And of course, if you reported one thing in one framework and because you're a global company, what you reported in Europe is, well, guess what? California didn't totally align. And so you need to report some of the same information into a different format. Well, you've already done this work. So you want to distribute the information without having to redo the work. That's a big pain point for those sustainability managers out there. And I would add, sometimes it's not a regulatory framework. So you've got a sales guy who has to answer an RFP.
Yep.
And there's that one area, where it's, okay, you're doing all those amazing things, but what are you doing on ESG, And then there are all these an extra 10 boxes, and the sales guy is just, exhausted because he's already done that for IT security. All he wants to do is talk about his product, but now he has to spend 3 extra hours on stuff he's less familiar with. So
Right.
here we're releasing imminently this cool feature where you upload the framework of your ESG questionnaire for your RFP, and we extract all the info we have, and we automatically populate this.
Oh, wow.
And
So basically, you're reaching across different divisions now, providing that ESG data that's needed, but not so much for the sustainability service, but for the sales department or for the engineering department.
Exactly. And people think that carbon emissions report or sustainability reports, they're purely like ESG or sustainability or impact department driven, all right? But in fact, they're in some geographies, they're mostly sales driven. It's people who say, "Oh, now my customer wants this,
Right.
so how do I win this deal?" And I wish this was like generalized, but I'd say with a certain type of customers, it's a requirement. And
Yes.
so it's actually the salespeople asking, "Hey, can you give me our company's carbon footprint report? What do you mean you don't have one? I'm going to lose this deal versus this other guy who has the same product as me, except he's basically more sustainable."
Exactly. I think that's really important for businesses, whether you're a small business, medium business, or an enterprise. And the thing that just keeps standing out to me about sustainability is that it makes good business sense. And it's actually tied to the profit and loss statement or income statement. Because if you can build a sustainable business that's going to attract new customers, you can win more deals. But at the same time, you're using automation, you're using AI, you're looking at what are the big culprits of energy waste, and now you're creating projects that are actually reducing your costs. And if you think about that, I'm increasing revenue, I'm increasing my reputation, I'm increasing goodwill, I'm reducing expenses. That means that at the bottom line, I have a larger net profit for my business. And so it actually really ties to having not just a sustainable business, but a profitable business.
Exactly. And sometimes people ask us what the ROI of all of this is. And so usually they know before they come, otherwise they wouldn't. But sometimes there's still but sometimes,
That's the question.
sometimes it's belief based. So you've got a champion in the company and he thinks it's really important, but
Right.
is trouble getting heard by the CEO, right?
Right.
So we've built a little calculator where we ask you who your customers are, and then what size they are and how much of their business they represent, and we show how much of your turnover basically is is at risk for lack of financial of climate exposure.
Right.
Basically, let's say you're $100 million business, right? And then you have 5 customers. They've all made a pledge for net zero along some of these identified frameworks,
Right.
like SBTi or CDP. And so when you do that, I can tell you, well, guess what? 50% of your business is at risk if you don't disclose your emissions,
Yes.
because that's what these guys expect.
Exactly.
And so suddenly you're like, oh, okay, well, you can be a climate skeptic if you want. You're still going to want to do this,
Exactly. Listen, I have one more question for you, and that is for companies just beginning their carbon tracking journey, what first steps can help them build both sustainable and productive practices from the start?
All right. Well, I mean, you can look at this from like, hey, you should report and measure your emissions, and we'll tell you what to do. But I do think that the first step is figuring out how important is this really to your business long term prospects. And so if you don't have senior management buy-in on this, it's going to be tough. So people really need to understand that you don't have to oppose climate and growth. There are more and more businesses. In fact, I think a majority of businesses today who will have a stronger growth trajectory if they align themselves with a net zero trajectory. If you don't believe at all what I'm saying, or if your senior management in your company doesn't believe that, it's going to be a tough sell.
Right.
Okay. So know what you want, and we probably don't want to sell you anything if, you're nobody in your senior management supports this strategy.
Exactly. Because it's not going to go anywhere.
It's not going to go anywhere. You might do a beautiful report, and then you're going to be super frustrated because you're not going to be doing anything about it. So I think it's first and foremost a question of what's our real ambition there, and you don't have to pretend that you're going to be carbon neutral and save the world. And no, it's fine to just want to grow your business, but how important is it for your business, for your customers, that you set about on this journey? Essentially, it's not that hard to do it, but it requires a conversation.
Exactly.
And usually the conversation stems from some external demand from a customer or an investor or somebody like that.
Right.
And once you have this, I'd say don't panic. We're no longer in a world where you have to spend millions to do this. What you and I are doing, Gerald, is we're democratizing the space. You don't have to, you can do baby steps till you get everything. And
exactly.
So I'm preaching for my own parish here, but I'd say check out the tools that are out there. We're one of them. We hope we're the best, right? But check them out and realize that it's not that difficult. We can make this simple and intuitive.
Right.
And you know what? Last thing I'd say is this is a journey maybe for your company, but it's also a learning journey for a lot of people.
Yes.
Go from, hey, I'm aware of this stuff to, hey, I am now an expert. So consider the upsides to your career of becoming smarter about climate. It's also a personal promotion that you're building for yourself. And I know there's an ESG backlash in some countries like the US, but this is just huff and puff. It's going to go away. Whereas climate change is not going away, unfortunately.
Exactly.
So if you think beyond the next 3 years, and you think, the next 20 years of your career, what's the upside of becoming smarter about climate? That's what
exactly.
I think is important.
And I'll end with this too, is that, although there are challenges, from different landscapes and political and so on and so forth within the US and other countries, if you're a global Fortune 500 company, you are now complying with other state and other country laws, which require you, which also means that if you're a supplier and you want to provide services to Fortune 500s, you then will be a part of their supply chain sustainability footprint, which means you have to learn how to do this stuff also. So at the end of the day, it's not about compliance, it's about doing good business.
Yeah, it's about ambition. I mean, if you are ambitious about your company, then somewhere down the line, you're going to have to be ambitious about climate.
Exactly. Alexis, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. It was a pleasure meeting you and sharing my book with you over in Paris. And
absolutely. I loved your book about how music, can help us becoming better men, better people, better managers. So it's great to be on this podcast.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm really grateful and happy that you were able to join me today on the Productivity Smarts podcast.
See you soon.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Very good.
Bye.
If you're enjoying the content and finding it valuable, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and helps us reach a wider audience. If you leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. Not only does it help us improve the podcast, but it also helps us attract more sponsors and grow our community. Thank you again for your support and for listening to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Smarts, where we help you achieve your goals and live your best life. We hope you've gained valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your productivity and increase your happiness and fulfillment. Remember to apply what you've learned and keep striving towards your goals. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring episodes and expert advice from our host, Gerald J. Leonard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and unleashing your productivity smarts.